Good morning, Enrico. I'm
Good
very
morning.
pleased to meet you. Thank you very much for your time this morning that we will meet and yes, discuss and reassume a little bit the results of the Festival of the Sviluppo Sostenibile, the Festival of Sustainable Development, the 7th edition, which you held in Italy in May. And we will further, of course, discuss and explain to our German public a little bit the work of ASviS, which the upcoming challenges and tasks. You are the initiator, the founder, and the so-called the soul of the Alleanza Italiana per lo Sviluppo Sostenibile, which you founded in 2016. And since then, you really achieved a lot of results. You made ASviS one of the biggest NGO in Italy for sustainable development and all the questions and issues linked to the Agenda 2030. And yes, so you're even acknowledged internationally, and even in Germany by now you're known because even in our little format, the German-Italian Dialogues for Sustainable Development, we already did some interviews. And yes, so I'm very curious to hear your resuming the results of the Festival of the Sviluppo Sostenibile. And yes, already or by now, I think that was even our observation. The people who are close to these issues are super engaged, like you with the Alleanza. Nevertheless, the political impact, or yes, there are still so many issues lacking or not implemented. I think that is a big yes challenge for you, even as ASviS. Please, so tell me your observations and the resuming of the festival, Enrico.
Well, thank you very much. ASviS, the Italian Alliance for Sustainable Development, is the largest network of organizations in Italy, not only NGOs, because we also have public institutions such as some research institutes. We have the business associations, we have the trade unions, the associations of municipalities, regions, universities. So it's really, we have more than 330 participants, and the festival is really the top of this effort in terms of visibility. The festival stands for, the festival lasts for 17 days, as many as the Sustainable Development Goals. Actually, with the neighborhood of the festival, we go through the entire month of May, and we had about 1,000 events organized all over Italy. ASviS organized directly 24 events, and it was an incredible success, also because we saw through streaming the participation of more than 2 million people to our events. Overall, thanks also to the cooperation with the RAI, the National Broadcasting, and ANSA, we reached 100 millions, I would say, of contacts. Thanks also to the support of the government, which provided some free space on the TV for spots about the festival. In a nutshell, we have discussed all the main topics related to the 2030 agenda, and we were very happy that, notwithstanding the change in the government, we had 11 ministers who attended, sent messages, connected via video conference, and also we have 5 ministries who supported the festival, including the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, which means that the festival is held also, at least some events, is held also in Italian embassies and cultural institutes all over the world. The key messages were given to the institutions in the final event at the Chamber of Deputies, and the Undersecretary to the Prime Minister office attended and answered some of our questions. He agreed on some of our proposals, including the urgency for adopting the new national strategy for sustainable development, which will update the 2017 version. And from that strategy, a lot of actions will start also at regional and local level. We also discussed how to embed in the legislative processes the new principles that we have pushed to include in our constitution. Since last year, the basic principles of the constitutions were changed thanks to the pressure put by ASviS since its start. And now we have among the tasks of the Italian Republic, the protection of the environment, ecosystems, and biodiversity, also in the interest of future generations. This is very important because this is the inclusion in the principles of the intergenerational equity principle, which is at the core of sustainable development. But now we have to change the way in which new legislation is prepared. Therefore, we are pushing to have a new way of checking new legislation vis-a-vis these principles. So as you can see, a lot of things have been discussed and a lot of proposals were made. Also were published several publications. So the festival is really not only a big engagement of the society, but a real dialogue between civil society and political leaders.
Thank you very much. I think that we can and will link even the proposals and the demands that ASviS put forward to the government in our documentation, our link. And what do you think if these demands, which are really urgent, because right now even facing the next steps that we have, the next summits, deadlines that should be accomplished. What do you think if the government shouldn't want to or is back with the implementation of these demands? I'm even referring to the question, pretty urgent, about the actuation and the implementation of the National Recovery Plan. The funding which was given to Italy was by far the largest in the European Union, and right now I think only a little part of the money is already invested, and though there are many plans, you as part of the former government under Draghi, you have pushed in these few months forward a lot in implementation of the structuring and planning for the PNRR. What do you think is right now upcoming? What could be the risks for the next month?
Well, I see the government, which is, at least according to their words, committed not only to implement the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience, but also to invest in renewables, speeding up the transformation of our energy system, and continuing some investments that, as Draghi government, we had designed, for example, for sustainable mobility. Just yesterday, it was circulated the updated version of the national plan for my former ministry. And although there are some changes, there are changes that don't change really the overall strategy. For example, for some railways, instead of having just one particular line, there will be the investment on another line which is part of the same system, or more investments on water systems, where there is a long list of projects that couldn't be financed when we were there. So I don't see any real change of perspective, also because the Next Generation EU principles must be respected. On the other side, I see some interesting developments. For example, what I had embedded in the legislation for all new public contracts for infrastructures, embedding the sustainability principles in the rules to prepare technical and economic projects for these public works, now have been embedded in the ongoing code of contracts, which means that this is the new way of developing infrastructures well beyond the next generation EU investments. And this is a very positive thing. So as you can see, it's difficult at this stage to understand exactly some strategies, and this is why we are pushing for the approval of this national strategy of sustainable development. Italy will also play an important role at international level, as in 2024 it will chair the G7. And the recent declaration of the Japanese G7 stresses the commitment to implement the 2030 agenda, including investments for sustainable mobility, transformation of the automotive system, and so on and so forth. So it will be difficult, I think, for Italy to go in a different direction. Nevertheless, we know that the next elections, EU elections, the European Parliament elections, will see the possibility, given the current polls, that the historical agreement between the Popular Party and the Socialist and Democratic Group will be broken. This will mean the possible majority of the center-right forces. And unfortunately, I see that in the declarations of various people, including some Italian ministers, they're talking about stepping back, or at least slowing down, the ecological transition at European level. That, in my view, would be a huge mistake. So the next year will be difficult at international and European level, and this is why the civil society organizations in all EU countries have to push even more for putting the 2030 agenda, the ecological transition, the digital transition, the just transitions at the core of the policy, no matter who will drive the European institutions.
Thank you very much, Enrico. So you already touched some important dates, the G7 next year. The EU elections will be, I think, shortly after the next edition of the festival, ASviS Festival, when the program is will go on as predicted. So you will have the next edition of the festival in May 2024, and shortly after there will be the elections. Talking about these international collaborations, of course, in this format we have to. At last point of my questions to address the question about the German-Italian relationship. Yesterday, Mr. Scholz was a guest at Mrs. Meloni, and the two governments, they declared again that they want to foster their collaboration and to finalize the so-called action plan. What is your demands, expectations to the German-Italian collaboration in pushing forward the demands that we have discussed, Agenda 2030?
Well, I believe that this action plan could play a very important role in order to give stability to the relationships between Germany and Italy. Nevertheless, we know that there are different orientations on some points. Yesterday, there was also the Council agreement on migration, which is a very hot potato, as we know, and we hope that the European Union as a whole will be able to face and strengthen the European policies and therefore national policies on very important dossiers that will be discussed for the future of the Union. I think that this action plan could be important, But beside what the governments will decide, I think that it's very important to strengthen the bilateral relationships between civil society organizations. Unfortunately, over the last 5-6 years, the attempts to build the networks of civil society organizations focused on the 2030 agenda didn't go so well because there are also other pressures, let's say, in the civil society in order to have a direct dialogue, and these umbrella organizations have more difficulties in dealing with lobby type actions that happen in Brussels or in Strasbourg. But nevertheless, especially in the direction of the new challenges and the next elections, I think that these bilateral relationships should be strengthened, should be made stronger, and of course, ASviS is fully available to work with you and the others in order to push the 2030 agenda through the national and European policy agendas for the years to come.
Thank you very much, Enrico. So I promise with our Platea 2030 and our partners, we will, of course, with pleasure collaborate and strengthen our collaboration with ASviS in order to, yes, push forward and bring forward this German-Italian dialogue for sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And yes, have a nice day and talk to you very soon.
You too. Bye.